So believe this or not, soft light actually sucks, and we're gonna prove it today. I want you to head outside next time there's a really cloudy day and check out the lighting just on everything. And what I think you'll notice is it's really drab and it lacks contrast and it's not very good at all. In short, it just tends to be very, very boring light when the clouds are out like that. And when the clouds get thicker and things get more diffuse and the light really gets evened out, like when you have darker clouds up there, the light gets even worse. What if we look at the example of product photography? If soft light was good, all these guys would do is just sit there and photograph stuff in these light boxes all day. But the reality is, these product photographers use a lot of hard light. They're focusing their light in, they use a lot of grids, and they're controlling their light using hard light and shooting it right at their subject, in many cases anyway. So let's again sort of ask ourselves, what is good light? When do we see good light? Well, when the sun kind of goes behind a cloud, when it's out just in the open sky, it's not that great for anything, right? But when it goes behind a cloud and it's a little bit diffuse, but not too much. We also see this later in the afternoon, like towards golden hour, it happens a lot. The sun will get a little bit softer. That turns into really good light. And this will tie into a lot of the coming points. What we really want out of our light is more dynamic light, right? We want light falling off. We want light spots sort of leading the eye. So where do you think this comes from? Why do you think people feel that soft light is just good light? Well, the truth is soft light is really good for portraits. But the other fact is, I feel, we're just not fully understanding exactly what soft light is. So we're going from lighting a human head, which is really actually very small, to lighting spaces like a huge living room that's say 20 or 30 feet by 30 feet. In the living room, our lighting source might be 1/20th of the size of the entire living room. Think of how big that living room is. And then our light source that we're bouncing, maybe it might be 4 or 5 feet across. The living room is gigantic. An umbrella or a softbox placed really close to a human face is 3 or 4 or more times bigger than the human head. So that's a big difference right there between our lighting source for the living room and our lighting source for that human head. I can guarantee you if you took the same relative size light source and light a human head, right? Because our living room is huge and we're taking this light source that's about 1/10 or 1/20th of the size of our subject. If you took the same size light source about 1/10 or 1/20th of a human head and you lit it, it would look terrible, right? There'd be really hard shadows and it wouldn't look great at all. And the fact that it's hard, that's why it looks good for us. So when we get these bounce sources, right, we're bouncing off the ceiling, that is actually hard light. And we found sort of intuitively as interiors photographers, this looks great. It's not soft light, that would take a huge light source, right? It's actually pretty hard light, but it's not really hard light like coming from our flash head, right? Just a little light source, that would look bad. And you can go back to our example when we started. We said the sun is not that great of a light source, but when the sun goes behind a cloud and it gets a little bit more diffuse, so that sort of middle area there between really hard and then too soft is a really nice sweet spot. So in my opinion, really hard light sources for real estate photography aren't that great because they look like the sun. Say light coming directly from your flash, they kind of look like the sun, and if you're in the middle of a living room or something, that's just not gonna do a good job. Really hard light sources like that also tend to cast a lot of really awkward shadows. So it's just not a great look in general. And once again, I actually feel like really soft light sources for an interior, if you were actually able to get a really soft light source in an interior image, it wouldn't look that great either. It would lack contrast, it would be a little flat, a little too even. There wouldn't be any dynamics to it. So again, we found sort of intuitively that these 4 or 5 foot, hot spots when we get into a bedroom or even a living room, they look great because they're sort of in the middle. They're not that really small, like 2-inch hot spot that we have coming directly from our flash, but they're not a huge light source like we have when we're outside and on a cloudy day. They're somewhere in the middle. And I think for our purposes, we really can consider them hard light sources because they're so small relative to our subject. So my title of this blog was sort of a misnomer, so don't pay attention to that anymore. You've gotten to this point, I'm glad. Don't think of soft light as good and hard light as bad anymore. Just think of them as tools. Try and think of light more in terms of the objective you're going for. Are you trying to embellish this natural sunlight that's coming into the kitchen? Well, I want to match the size of my light source. I want to get a fairly small light source in that case and try and match the sunlight. And so I'm matching the color and everything, and I'm just trying to mimic that light source. I want to just embellish what's there already. What if we're in a living room and we're bouncing our flashes and we feel like the image is just overall just lacking a little contrast and a little, you know, just a little clarity? Well, move your flashes a little bit closer to that bounce spot, right? That'll tighten up your light source. That'll make it a smaller light source, and that's going to give you a little bit more clarity and contrast. The same things that hard light will always do. And you're just once again sort of trying to find that sweet spot where it's not the sun, right? It's not the direct sun like we had when we're outside. It's when the sun goes right behind that cloud. That's sort of the sweet spot you're looking for in your interiors photos. So once again, don't think hard light bad, soft light good. Think of your objective, and I hope this information serves you well.